Ooh, she's so mature and pretend to be her. Looks like his father, but sounds just like his mother. Looks like his father, but sounds just like his mother.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm super excited to be here with Cole and Mimi from the choreographic duo REDACTED to talk about their new work that will premiere at 3 a.m. Theater on June 6th. So, hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me in rehearsal.
Thanks for being here.
Love it. I love a rehearsal room. And I just want to maybe just start with how was that run for you just now? You're halfway through this 1 week residency.
I felt good. I really love this room of people that was here today. And it sort of, I think actually running and rehearsing in front of artists that you love and respect is a little scarier than running in front of just a general audience of people that have come to a show. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel scary, but it's just you really want to do a good job and you really want the concept to feel like it's coming across. And I felt like we did that today. So yeah. I feel really good about it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel just so fully immersed in the fantasy of it when I'm performing it now. Mm. I think throughout this process, it's at times felt difficult to get into the different characters, the different doppelganger pairings that we've created for this show. Just because the landscape of memory can feel really treacherous at times. Yeah. And of course we have this resistance to re-invoking the pain of that.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the what is this fantasy and these characters?
Yeah, so we play 3 different doppelganger pairings. The first is mommy and baby. I'm mommy, Cole's baby. The second, we play these childhood, creation, these versions of our idealized childhood selves. Nikki and Michael, and the last pairing is Mimi and Cole, the auto-fictitious version of Mimi and Cole.
In general, we're sort of exploring all the different ways that a doppelganger can exist outside of actually a true identical pairing. Mm-hmm. But what does it mean to sort of be raised to be the same as something? We feel like doppelgangers, even though we don't necessarily have that visual effect out in the world. People don't think that we're sisters, like many lesbians are mistaken for. But I think there's a real internal sense of being very locked in. Mm-hmm. And so we were sort of, fantasizing with how to extrapolate that outwards and playing with both visual doppelgangers and visual similarity and also character similarity.
Right. I was thinking in this run, about encounter. Mm-hmm. And what is that, and what is seeing yourself in somebody else really why, and is it selfish, is it indulged, I was thinking about that. I was thinking that a lot. I love that, and it felt very, I just kind of wanted to talk about coming of age to your ideal self. It has this tone of that swell precipice of being kind of who you want, but not really.
Yeah. I think the central question for the show that we had going into the process was, are you still your mother's daughter if you're no longer a woman? We were really grappling with this role of daughterhood in both of our lives. As both of us have navigated transition in different ways, the role of being a daughter felt like the hardest thing to shed. Mm-hmm. And it's a very gendered role, but it also sort of predates your understanding of your own gender if you're raised as someone's daughter. And so that was sort of our central question. And we were really inspired by Naomi Klein's book, Doppelganger, and as we were sort of thinking about that work and the political implications of doppelgangers and what it means to sort of be on a similar trajectory as someone else potentially and then really split and divide ways, we were thinking about mother-daughter pairings as doppelganger relationships. That sort of, when you're raised as someone's daughter, our sort of stance in this work, it's not a universal truth, but our take on it was that you're sort of raised as your mother's doppelganger. And sort of when you diverge from that path for us by way of transition, what happens to the likeness and the sameness and the shared experience and all of the ground of familiarity and similarity? Does that just go away? Yeah. What do you do with that? Mm-hmm. And I think for people raised as women, it's sort of like your first inheritance. That sort of became this like fractured tree of doppelgangers where we were like, okay, we want to set up a mother-daughter doppelganger pairing. We also want to explore our own, really putting ourselves in the work and explore how we are doppelgangers and also not doppelgangers. And then when it came to our childhoods, it really felt like we were wanting to like look back through the lens of fantasy. So not necessarily recreating our own gendered experiences, but actually recreating what we maybe like wish that we got to experience. For me, when I was thinking about my sort of like doppelganger split off, I was really thinking about like when I started to transition, I also really, or started to come into my gender, I also really moved away from my ballet background and my training. But there was a period in my life before all the training trauma that ballet was really joyful.
Yeah.
And it was really pleasurable and it was full of fantasy. And so that was like the sort of space for me that I was really exploring with like the Nikki character.
Yeah, Michael is really rooted in the version of boyhood that I felt like I never experienced but witnessed from afar. Being raised in a very Vietnamese Catholic household. Like for my entire childhood, every Sunday I would go to Sunday school and get that like religious education and then take like Vietnamese classes and then go to church. And then afterwards, like a lot of the boys would go like behind the church and they would do their like breakdancing thing. And I like always watched that from afar because all the girls had to wear skirts. So like at the end of this like really stifling and regimented like schedule, I would watch all of these boys have this moment of release and freedom and this feeling of like jealousy. It was jealousy, but not quite, because I had this narrative at the time that I could never have what they had together.
So another thing I want to talk about is process, because I've been in your work before, and so I want you to talk to me more about how this is different, how this like duetting, also being directed by Sasha, is different than like other processes.
Yeah, it's definitely the most vulnerable work that we've ever made.
Yeah, I mean, when we sort of fell into making work together, we never intended to like have a choreographic collaboration. It happened very organically. And so I think it really followed quite naturally to make our first pieces with ensembles, because we didn't know what we were doing. And so we got to borrow so much. Like we had such skilled, incredible artists that, you know, were so generous in working with us. And also in My Apocalypse, the piece that you were in, that was a piece of feedback that we got from the performers, was that because we were both in the show and making it, there was a real desire to have sort of like a director who was sort of in charge of, you know, creating the image. And so we took that feedback really to heart and really wanted to set ourselves up for success in this very different and vulnerable endeavor of making a piece that's just us. And so Sasha has been such a gift, because whoever is making a piece inevitably leaves a thumbprint of themselves on that work. We were really eager to have Sasha's thumbprint on this work. And I do think when we've spoken about it in the past, like we have brought up this configuration in different sort of peer groups that we're in with other choreographers, people were like quite confused that we were making a work, that we were the choreographers, but we had asked someone else to direct. Like we got sort of like a question mark face about that. And to us, it just makes so much sense.
There needs to be more of that, in my opinion, because I think you are, it totally spot on that you feel, I think Sasha has a really great understanding of timing and of humor for the material that is dealing with memory, is dealing with something a bit heavy. I think for that you really need someone with a keen sense of like balance and like absurdity pushing moments, and I really felt so like satisfied. It's really nuanced and cohesive and like satisfying.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you feel that way.
Strange.
Yeah, it's definitely the weirdest piece that we've made, and you've been and seen our other, like we've made very weird work before, and this I think like really takes it to another level of absurd. I think for us, I think we thought that we were performers that took risks, and truly I don't think either of us were acquainted with risk before this piece. This is risk on another level for us.
So I'm really excited for you. I'm so excited for One Way Mirror. I'm so excited to write, honestly, about this for Gryllus.world.
Gryllus.world.
Yes. and have a little beautiful record of your work and your work with Sasha. And
Thanks for doing
Our
it.
time together
I'm
today.
so
Time
lucky to be
together.
witnessed by you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love ya.
Love ya.
Too. Big
Amazing.
love.